Progress.
Good evening. I'd like to call this regular meeting of the Board of Finance for Monday, October 16th, 2023 to order. First time on the agenda tonight, public forum. Anybody wishing to address the board in public forum? Seeing none. Unless there's somebody on Zoom. Still seeing none. Item number 2, approve minutes of our regular meeting minutes of September 18th, 2023. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any comments or corrections on the minutes?
I believe Megan Scanlon was present on Zoom and doesn't show that she was.
That is accurate.
That
Thank
is-
you,
that
Amy.
Since you voted.
Yeah.
That is accurate, yes. I think I had something near the end. Yes, I had a couple items at the end on page, they're all on page 8. Under new business, 5th line down, where it says my, just change that to his preference. Third line, second paragraph. I believe I didn't say most like, I believe I said Mr. Ailes said the cost will not go up, strike most likely. However, if they go out to bid, it is likely they will be paying more. And the third paragraph, last sentence, they have 1.7 million, M. 1.7 million, still unallocated in ARPA fund bucket. Those are my comments or corrections. Anybody else?
I have a little further down in the paragraph that begins, Mr. Hoy, kind of in the middle, it says, the sentence that starts, when this was originally approved, it included a 5% managed fee for the Guilford Foundation and up to 4% for the outside consultant. I think it should, who helped design the program to ensure it was consistent with ARPA fund requirements. Just add the word "the" in there.
Okay.
And then on page 5, under the last paragraph, general fund, there's, in the middle of the paragraph, it says employee benefits hyphen, it says when people retire, and then there's an extra "and." Should be when people retire and there's a sick leave. I'm not just sure that should also recite when people retire and I think they have sick leave. And then I think that's it.
Yeah, on the employee, the one you were just mentioning, employee benefits, I think it was, each one of those was a transfer. So I think employee benefits, it was, yeah, I think that's accurate when, it's basically defining what the employee benefit
Right.
issue was when people retire and they have sick leave, right? Yeah, it was a little bit hard to pick up.
And I had one other one now that I look at it. At the very bottom of page 3, in the sentence that begins, in July, this is in Ms. Malvasi's report, it says in July they bring in almost 50 million, that's in revenue. And the rest of the 6 months, those funds start to go down, just to make it clear.
Okay. Okay, anything further? Okay, I'll call a question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Opposed? Abstentions? Great, thank you. Item number 3, correspondence, standing building committee minutes. I just looked up and I saw Chairman DeMayo is on Zoom. Good evening, David.
Good evening, everyone.
Thank you for joining.
My pleasure.
Anything from the Board of Finance regarding standing building committee minutes? These are for from October 3rd, 2023.
I got a couple of questions, Mike.
Jonathan, go ahead.
David, I was looking at the last section of the minutes, the new business section, and it talks about commissioning for projects that have detailed HVAC systems and controls. And that made a lot of sense to me, but I had a question. Will there also be like a dollar amount that you would exceed before you'd consider commissioning?
That's a good question, and it hasn't been quite resolved yet. This has been riding on the end of our agenda for quite some time. What we're waiting for is, commissioning has been fairly new to the town, and we have one school that's been fully commissioned, and we're waiting for a report on one more school. And once that other report is in hand, we're going to go through those reports in detail and determine the best course of action going forward. And yes, there will be a dollar value, assigned that, if it's it's probably something under 100,000, I would imagine that we wouldn't spend the money on commissioning, because commissioning could run up, depending on the complexity, it could run up, 15, 20% of the total contract. But what we are finding is that in the two schools that have been commissioned, there certainly was some items that otherwise wouldn't have been thought in the performance of the system. So we need to finish the commissioning we have in place to really pin that down.
All right, that makes perfect sense to me. I just didn't, I didn't see it in the minutes, so I wanted to pose the question. And then another question, I'm probably just a little out of touch with this, but I was curious, what is the issue going on with the HVAC system at Baldwin Middle School between the contractor and your board?
Sure. Do you want me to capture the whole thing for you?
It doesn't have to be very involved. I just was curious,
So this issue is with phase 2 of the Baldwin HVAC project, and it has to do with air handlers 5 and 6. And for the most part, phase 2 of the HVAC project was a replacement of equipment, not necessarily ducting and distribution. So the new air handlers 5 and 6 were installed per contract, and they were to be connected to the existing ductwork. And there was a duct transition that needed to be take place between the new unit and the old ductwork. And best of our knowledge, there is an issue. There was an issue with that transition ductwork, and it is impeding the airflow from the unit to the rooms that are being served by 5 and 6. So after much discussion and review, and we actually had a third party review come in, it was determined that the transition was the problem. Now, whether it was designed incorrectly, manufactured incorrectly, the jury is still out on that. But we need to get it repaired and operational, and that's the point that we're at now. So the issue is that in order to move forward, we had to get pricing. Save More was the contractor that did the project. They have been somewhat challenging to work with. So we went out and got 2 other bids, and Rotolo Heating and Cooling is the low bid, as you can see in the minutes. And we're going to get this problem resolved, but you'll see at the end of the minutes that we're reaching back to Silver Petroselli because we feel there's some responsibility there. It's the third-party review indicated that the actual transition wasn't manufactured exactly to industry standards, but there's also a question as to whether the design that was given to them by Silver Petroselli was actually a good design. So we're kind of caught in this difficult transition, and it's been going on for, I think we're going into our 3rd heating season. And it's not such a problem with heating, but it's a bigger problem with cooling. So we're moving forward to get this resolved, and we're going to ask Silver Petroselli for help.
Okay, I appreciate the information, the detail, and I appreciate your board paying attention to these things and asking the right questions.
Our pleasure.
Yes, I echo that. Thank you for the detailed explanation of I know we've been seeing it for a while, committee minutes. Anything else from the board to the chairman of the building committee? I did not have anything further on my end. Okay. Okay. David, thank you very much for joining us.
Been a pleasure.
Okay,
I'll talk to you folks soon.
you got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Item number 2 under correspondence, pension committee minutes, monthly report. Anything in the minutes or the investment report?
Should I wait for a question on the OPEB, or is that small?
Yeah, just hold off a second. We're going to probably move right over to it in a second, so.
Do we care that one of the fund's CEO is leaving and 2 of the founders are leaving? Is that a concern or no? There's a fund, the Met West Fund, David Vick had said, like, the CEO and then 2 founders are leaving. Is that a concern, or we're not concerned about that?
Well, it's always concerning, but he came to meet with us to explain how they are bringing people up who have been there for many years. One of the 2 that are leaving will be actually staying for another 2 years, so hopefully it'll be a smooth transition. But we will be watching that closely.
Okay.
The question under old business, 8.1, it said review, so the agenda item was review draft request for proposal for the 401A and 457B investment advisory services. And then it had indicated, Mary Jane, that you had said that it was reported that the bid opening is September 28th. So I saw review draft, but there was a bid due.
It's probably just the heading of the, yeah, there was we did have a bid opening on September 28th.
There was a bid opening,
Mhm.
okay. I know we're a little bit, obviously, we're always a little bit behind in the minutes. And I guess the next question would be, was it a good response from,
We had
Advisor.
5 responses.
okay,
We had a matrix built into the RFP. The 4 members of the subcommittee have reviewed and gone through them and will be making their first report to the Pension Commission Committee Wednesday morning.
great, great. Thank you. Yeah, I just saw draft and then I saw there was a bid, but it must be in the title, so.
I do have a
Okay.
question on these
Yes.
minutes as well.
Okay,
Was
good.
there a mention of combining the 5 plans? Was that a?
That is not part of the RFP itself. We're really looking for someone to just review the plans as they are. But we do expect, as has been done in many other towns, that the consultant would probably make that type of recommendation. So we are expecting that, but that is not the intent of the original RFP.
Mhm.
Would that save us any money? Make
Yet
it
to be
simplifying anything?
Yet to be seen.
Okay. I was curious about that
That's
one.
what that's
Thank
what
you.
we're hiring them to do, right? It's a good question, though. Anything else in the minutes? Anything on the investment report? Which is up from the beginning of the year, but down from last month. That's the short recap. And that,
Tough.
that applies to the OPEB investment too. If nothing further on pension committee, OPEB board minutes. Jonathan, you had a question? Or you want to?
Not on the minutes, though.
Okay, on the investment report.
I just was curious on the investment report, just, a little bit down with the markets this last reporting month. How much did we start with in that account in terms of contributions? Was it 2.5 million or was it 3? 2.7, okay.
All to, the very, very start, when we opened the account.
It's a long-term investment strategy.
Yeah,
Yeah. Because it got up to like 2.8, Jonathan.
yeah.
It was up, right?
It's been hovering. It's been hovering in that, well, the market's been kind of crazy the last couple of years anyway, so. Yeah. That's a better, more professional word, volatile instead of crazy. but-
Both describe the market.
Yeah, they're both.
They're both accurate. Anything else on OPEB? Okay, we'll move on to item number 4, review and accept report of expenditures for the Board of Education for September 2023. Linda Judeau, John Delaventura.
Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So September financials, first
Yes.
full month into school. Total expenditures amounted to $6,698,043, nearly in line at 22, spending at 22.69% of the budget. Revenues for September reached $46,895, sourced from various areas, including non-resident tuition, Medicaid, and pre-K tuition. Notably, funds amounting to $48,662.49 were received and dispersed as professional deductible assistance stipends on September 29th, 2023's payroll. Regarding specific expenses, expense categories, salaries and employee benefits remained consistent with 22 spending, with an apparent increase in September due to 3 payroll periods in both September of 2023 and 2022. Purchase services saw a slight increase attributed to timing variances in encumbrances and payments. Tuition expenses showed a decrease in expenditure percentages, mainly due to payment timing. Supplies and materials expenditures mirrored the prior year, with variances explained by budget adjustments and payment timing. Capital expenses remain lower than the previous year, while transportation costs approximated last year's spending. And lastly, a warrant of $2,123,643 represented all the payments for the month. There was discussion of the warrants in our operations meeting. Some of the ones that I wanted to highlight: A&W Sanitation. This was the Lakes grading regarding the playground, grading playground area, supply, spread topsoil, rake seed, the lawn. Class A floors regarding the high school gym refinishing. This was routine finishing. Gets a lot of use, so obviously we have to make sure we maintain the finish.
That was for both, that was for the high school?
Yes.
Both of those were for that?
Yes.
That was I had
Yep.
one of those. Okay, yep.
We had a reimbursement to Guilford Center for Children. This was done for the extended extended summer year program, reimbursement to them for special education students. Let's see, Red Thread, this was tile flooring in the cafeteria at Leet. And then lastly, Steamatic. This was all related to the Jones water damage that we had, which, if you look at the reconciliation, there was a $122,000 reimbursement due to that water damage.
So was it for us out of pocket net about 5,000?
10,000.
10,000. What was the amount?
122,000.
There were other expenses.
There were
other
others,
than-
not just the
other than
127. There were a
CMAC.
couple of others. Okay. Good.
Some flooring and cove molding.
Yeah, that's
About
good.
$5,000.
And it's all cleaned up.
Yes.
Thank you, John.
You bet.
Anything on expenses first?
Just one.
Sure.
But it's really just clarification. I was just curious, I saw regular bus expenditures 0 for last year. Is that because it's a 2-year contract? I can't remember why we would see those numbers.
Because they bill,
They bill late.
they bill monthly, so they bill us in October for September's. So we haven't.
Oh, so we hadn't been billed yet.
Oh, we
haven't
haven't
been
laid
billed
out
yet
any
for-
money for that
yeah.
one. Okay.
Still plenty to come.
Yeah, I'm sure
Yeah,
they'll
right.
charge us at some point.
I had a couple on warrants, but you did touch on a couple that I had, so let me just scroll through
Mhm.
quick. Page 3, BL Companies. Surveying for wetlands permit at Adams. Just curious what that is in preparation for. Is it in prep for something, or is it something we need to have on record, or usually surveying
So this
means
is-
something?
This is an ongoing issue
Okay.
with the stream behind,
Yeah,
that
I'm
runs
familiar.
behind
Between the residences
the
and the actual
residences.
property.
Okay.
So they're looking at what to do with it, clean it up, how to manage it.
Okay. So the survey is just, not just for record, but for review and for
Correct.
possible correction?
To put
Yes.
together a plan, yeah.
Okay.
Is the behind the baseball field.
Correct.
Parking
Yeah.
lot.
Yep.
Yeah, that whole.
Yeah, we've heard from the residents. It's kind of an ongoing,
It's
been going on for a
years.
while.
As long as I've
Yes.
known about that stream, it's been a problem. You answered that one. And page 8, district line striping, 13,650. Is there any particular areas where that line striping has been done? Is it all the schools?
All the
or
schools.
All the schools, just basically parking, striping? and-
Parking striping, and I believe they did striping at CO North as well,
Okay. So that was for the entire school district?
entire district.
Oh, well, that makes 13,000 not look so bad if it was all the schools and the central office. And then, what else did I have? Oh, you answered that one. Nope, that was it. Anybody else on warrants?
I had a couple.
Sure.
Yale School of Medicine tuition. Just curious who that, is that for students? Or is that
It's for students, it's,
Okay.
Is that outplacement?
yeah, it's an outplacement, it's
Outplacement.
actually, I believe, the Cedarhurst School
Okay,
is
Probably
billed
just due to
through
billing.
Yale.
Yeah.
okay. All right. I didn't know if it was some new advanced study program we had introduced.
Way more advanced.
Brilliant students.
Hey, it wouldn't surprise me. I had one other, I think. Oh, this is a relatively small amount on page 6 of the warrants. There's a charge to Eversource for the GHS lighting project. Is that something, kind of a one-off, or? what is that?
It'll be every month for, I forgot what period of time. They went in and they changed out all the lighting in the high school to more energy efficient, even though the building is so new, they still changed out all the lighting.
Okay,
There was some fluorescent that were changed over
Yeah,
to
there were some-
LEDs.
okay.
I'm just laughing because I'm chuckling because when you say new, it's not so new anymore,
Right,
right?
right.
I mean, we all at the new high
Yeah.
schools.
Yeah, it's
We all
not-
make
it's
that
not
mistake.
as
We all make
simple
that
as we think
mistake
it
as
is
we're
anymore.
refinishing floors multiple
And the
times.
technology changes literally on a almost year-to-year basis, so that's great. If it's going to be more energy efficient, then that's what needs to be done.
The once new high school, yeah.
The aging high school. It's not going anywhere.
Don't say that.
It's fine. Hey, listen, we're all aging, so, you know.
I had one other
Go ahead.
on page 3, and I know it's an annual, but could you just explain one more time, and more for the folks who may be watching this, Bloxy? I know there's a license renewal there. That's a teaching tool in the classes, if I'm not mistaken, right? Or am I way off?
I thought Bloxy was the software that prevents,
Yeah, it
like,
prevents them from
it's like a
going to
firewall
certain-
kind
Okay.
of safe security.
For-
Kids off
Yeah.
certain
For the
sites or-
Chromebooks?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because if they went to
Probably for the
certain
network
things,
in
then it would
general.
compromise like the entire system.
So that is money well spent.
Yes.
Yes.
Especially with all the cyber
Yep.
attacks, yeah.
Great. And then I noted in the financials that legal is down from where it was at this point last year. Is that attributable to anything that, I mean, I think if memory's correct, we had a lot of bargaining
Yeah,
going on
contract-
last year.
contract last year.
And
Right.
not so much this year, so that may
Right,
Right.
not until
be part of it.
the spring. We have a couple contracts up in the spring.
Okay.
So we'll be starting then.
Okay,
But we don't have any, excuse me, any continuing on at this point.
great.
So hopefully that trend will stay low.
Anything else on the financials? Warrant? Or the meeting minutes from the 11th or 26th? Tuition report. You sent that to us
I sent it to you today.
earlier today, mid-afternoon?
Yes, so this is still really early, but right now, we're in good shape. We're one student below what we had budgeted for private placements and 11 students below for public. And we're projecting right now to be under budget by $377,000, but we all know that that can change very quickly. I am still projecting excess cost at a fairly low reimbursement rate because we don't really know what it's actually going to end up being.
Last year it ended up, what was it last year again? Where did we end up?
70,
High 70s, wasn't
it
it?
was high 70s.
Yeah.
So we were
Higher than
expecting-
budgeted, higher than budgeted,
Higher
but
than
lower than
budgeted.
it.
And right now you're saying 70 to be conservative based
Yes.
on, yeah. That's good. Okay.
I note that there's only 2 VOAG students as opposed to 6 last year. Is there any?
Well, we budgeted for 6.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, that's the
And
budget.
sometimes I'll lump VOAG with some of the other magnet schools, so we had budgeted for 6. It could end up changing. There may be some that at this point I wasn't aware of that. Every once in a while I get these bills from New Haven schools for various magnet schools that I wasn't aware of. But for right now, those are what I'm aware of.
Right.
And it's still early in the school year.
Right.
So.
Yes.
As we've learned in the past, it doesn't take much for it to change,
No,
one way or the other.
right.
Any idea where we're coming in with regard to enrollment? I saw there was a reference to it in the minutes.
I don't have any
No
idea
hard
at this
numbers
point.
yet?
No real hard
no.
numbers. I
I
mean,
haven't seen the October 1st numbers yet.
the only issue being, Jeff, is we've had some classes with variations of sizes.
Yep.
That's been the biggest, discussion
Bubbles,
point.
right? I mean, there's been bubbles moving
Yeah.
through. Yeah.
Because of how the town is spread out, we've got some elementary schools in which we've got kindergarten classes that have 13,
Right.
and then some that are, closer to 17. Try as you might, there's no way to really solve that.
I saw that you offered, or the board offered for Cox parents to move their kids to.
That's right.
Did anyone
That's right.
take?
One family. Yeah. It's a big commitment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have to, there's no bus.
That's
I'm
right.
sorry, that one family decided to go to LEAP, was that?
Yeah.
Decided to go from Cox to Leet. Yes.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. So that's a 5-year commitment, and it's
Yeah.
Is that going to change at all with the new law, or you think it's just going to be the same? So the fact that the cutoff is going to be,
gonna be hard to say.
okay.
Yeah. I mean, there's going to be an impact. What it is, we just don't know yet.
Okay.
So next month, there'll be a better understanding of what the enrollment number was, because that's what gets reported October 1st.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I had the same question about enrollment, whether it was up, down. I'm sure it wasn't by a lot, one way or the other. I'm making just a general statement, because it hasn't really changed too much over the last few years. So. Okay. Anything else for Board of Education? John or Linda?
That's it.
Unrelated to finances, but I did want to give the Board of Ed a lot of credit because they had to go through all of the books and do the book review. I know obviously staff were involved too, so I just want to publicly give them kudos for taking the time to go through all of those books and do the review
Quite
and
a
get
summer of reading.
the public
Okay.
input. I mean, that was a lot of work for both staff and the board, so I just think they deserve a lot of credit for doing that.
The credit really still stays with our teachers and our librarians. I mean, these are a lot of these are very powerful, very difficult to deal with, but impactful. So they've continued to make very good judgment calls on these books.
Good point. Thank you. Okay. I guess there's a motion I need to entertain. I'll entertain a motion to accept the report of expenditures for the Board of Education for September 2023 in the amount of $6,698,043.66.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Any recusals? Thank you.
Thank you. Good
Have
night.
a wonderful evening.
Which one's next?
Item number 5, review and approve a report of expenditures for town government for September 2023. Mary Jane Malvasi, First Selectman Hoey, on the screen.
You're on mute.
You're on
You're
mute, but
muted.
that's okay.
But that's okay, he says.
Goody.
My apologies for not being there in person. I had a family situation I had to attend to, but I'm all yours now.
Thank you for joining us. And not leaving Mary Jane alone. Although she's
She would have been
done
fine.
just fine. Okay, revenue.
All right, so we are already 25% through. Actually, before I start, I wanted to just let the board know that our audit is well underway. It's going very well this year. Hopefully, we will not have the bumps and bruises from last year. So just want to let you know that that is well underway.
Great news.
As far as revenues, 25% through the year, we have brought in 53.2%, slightly less than where we were last year. Not anything really that pops out at us to bring to your attention, so I will just take questions.
One comment is, the biggest item being the tax collection is a full % down, so that'll definitely make an effect. Any thoughts on just, this is a timing issue?
There's, that's really, it's a percent, but
Yeah, it's
it's
No,
it's a percent of a big number, so
it
you
equals
know.
a lot
it's-
of, yeah,
Yeah,
but it's not that far off.
No.
It's just a percent.
absolutely not.
Finance and golf finance is still, even despite the change in the budgeted amount, we're still,
Right, well, keep
Fine.
in mind that, the first quarter of the fiscal year and the first quarter of the calendar year, I have the most money to invest.
Yeah.
So the numbers are going to be higher during that time. They're not going to drop off that much, and sure to meet my budget, but it's why the percentage is higher at the beginning of the year.
right. And golf, that'll
Golf?
also slow down a little
Yes.
bit as we hit the
Yep.
winter months, so. Those were the only two, though. Everything else seemed to be right in line.
Yeah,
Any-
golf has a similar timeline
As finance.
as our finance.
It's a warm weather thing, right?
Middle of
Yeah,
summer
right.
and spring, yeah. Right.
Right. No, not at all related. Anything else on revenue?
Any reason why, I know it's not a big number, but health department's down quite a bit from where it was last year this time. Any thoughts behind that?
Not really, it's really just a matter of, if there's issues with, people's wells, a lot of big items can really make that budget do this.
Right.
They do their standard permits and their inspections, but I think what really changes it is when the big things come through.
Okay.
Okay. Shall we move on to expenses?
All
Yes.
right, so on the expense side, we're slightly down from where we were last year, 30% as opposed to 31%, pretty much right where we should be at this time. As I like to note, some of the departments that are far greater than 25% expended are those that have their expenditures early in the year, information systems, insurance, benefits, that type of thing. And some of our other departments have some large encumbrances outstanding, which kind of increase their percentages as well. Otherwise, we don't have any departments that, we're really watching at this point.
Questions?
I had noticed the golf revenue was down, but so is their expenses. Like, I would gather that most of their expenses are probably in the spring, huh?
Yeah, water, and then the
Yeah.
spring, they didn't,
Yeah, they didn't
we
have
had a really good year
There
so
was
far
not-
with water.
no, water was
So
not-
that's one of their
Right.
biggest expenses, believe it or not.
Yeah.
That was down. But
I'm sad to say, but I haven't been keeping an eye on the golf course as much. Over the years, are we still subsidizing them about a similar amount, or?
No,
They're really taking
last
it out.
year,
They're
last
making
year,
money.
they made us
Yeah.
money.
Yeah.
And when we brought them into the general fund, we were able to bring them in under, you know, I don't want to say we have more scrutiny, but we did. You know, we had more say in what they were doing. Purchasing, we've been able to do a lot with purchasing, and sharing of people and plans. So it's really, I think it's really helped that they've become part of the general fund, and they have a lot more backing behind them with us, helping
Okay.
them out.
Yeah,
So
there were-
maybe we'll see another plus year.
Yeah, I mean, Matt, I see your hand up. I was just gonna say there were a lot of different reasons that,
Yeah.
that turned the corner like it did. I mean, you could even,
The
you could even
pandemic
put the
helped.
pandemic.
People were eager
pandemic
to
get
in that.
outside,
sure.
to say the
There were a
least.
lot of
For
different
sure,
reasons.
that's
And
why
it was
they're
a new
making money with the
commission. I
pandemic,
mean,
yes.
Matt, did you wanna add on to that?
Yeah, Jonathan, thank you for pointing out one of the success stories over the last couple of years, which is the complete reversal of a significant subsidy to keep the golf course open. What I think happened over time was there were a lot of guys, perhaps like me, not necessarily me, but who were working from home during the pandemic and were able to go play 9 holes of golf during the middle of the day. The pandemic turned out to be a huge boost for play at the Guilford Golf Course. And the very fact that we're talking about the opportunity for them to cover their cost is a phenomenal turnaround from the way we used to look at, and we continue to look at providing services out of all of our departments. There is not an expectation from any of our departments, save for the tax collector, that they are going to cover the cost of the operation of their entity. So, you know, youth and family services, human services, even park and rec to a large degree. The expectation is not that we are making money on those departments, but that was one of those areas where we focused on over the last several years to try to maximize the revenue opportunities to offset some of those costs. So, Jonathan, I appreciate you bringing that up. They've made significant changes in the way they operate the course. They've also benefited from, I think, a resurgence in interest in golf in general.
I would just like to add that I've already covered the expenses of my department.
Of
Just
course.
as an aside.
Of course.
Hey, Mike,
Yeah.
I did have one other thing I would
Sure.
ask Mary Jane to address, which is that one that is a concern to the Board of Selectmen this morning at our meeting, and should be for you folks as well, and that relates to the fire department. As you are all pretty much aware, we have had some challenges related to replacement and overtime costs over the years. So I think your documents suggest that the fire department is already at a 30% expenditure level on the replacement salaries. I don't recall specifically from my looking at the numbers this morning where the overtime was, but that 30% is against a 25% year to date. But Mary Jane, forgive me if I misheard this morning, but I think even that 30% number includes some offsets as a result of ARPA funds.
Correct, you're putting about $2,000 a month for ARPA funds into the replacement salaries.
Into the
So
replacement.
Great news.
So that's a heads up to the Board of Finance as we
So this-
start to enter into
Budget season.
our next budget season. Mary Jane has already asked the department heads to submit their capital budgets, and won't be long after that she asked them to submit their operating budgets. But this is something we need to keep our eye on, because despite the fact that we had identified this as a challenge last year and we increased the amount of money that was allocated to the replacement salaries and overtime, we find ourselves back in the same position, or
So
may find ourselves back in the same position.
I remember this coming up during the budget discussions last year, and I remember asking Deputy Chief Shove, should we just be looking at adding more firemen?
That's
instead
an
of,
excellent question, Megan. And, you know, it's a question of staffing patterns
right,
and what the minimum staffing levels should be, and the staffing patterns going forward, particularly given the volume of calls we're having. And I think most of you are aware that this is not specifically related to fire. It is predominantly related to the emergency services calls, EMT and paramedic stuff. And I will be revisiting that a little later in our conversation tonight.
Okay. I did notice that fire was down percentage-wise from last year, so that was a positive, but it was still higher than the 25. So yeah, I threw a positive in there. But that's a good point about the adding staff.
could just be cheaper,
Could be.
or
Could be.
maybe not,
You find-
I don't know.
Okay. Anything else on expenses? You covered everything you wanted to? Okay. Warrants. Special fund or weekly? Anything on either? Pretty straightforward, at least on the special fund, it looked like. Okay, nothing, if nothing on warrants, we'll go to capital fund. Anything to bring to our attention on capital fund?
Not really. We have, capital funds that, back to fiscal years 13 and 14, always looking to close them out. I don't have any that we're specifically looking to do that yet, but working with all the departments to use up the old money before we move on to the new.
Right. So we have the capital fund for the town and for the schools. I didn't see anything that drew my attention. And medical.
So on the medical fund, you'll see that we have another month that we have not paid stop loss. However, I have met with our consultant and the stop loss company. We are catching up on this, and for the month of October, you'll see I've agreed to pay July and August. In November, we're going to pay September and October, and in December, we're going to pay November and December, and then start monthly in January. So next month, you'll see that starting to catch up. So please don't look at the projected surplus at the bottom of the page, because it's irrelevant. On the flip side of that, we are also going to be having a meeting with the company, because when everything was through Anthem, it just all flowed and the net amount came out and everything was good. With the new company, we have to pay our full premium, and then anything over the $150,000, we have to seek reimbursement. So far we're at $40,000, but we'll be getting into a monthly request for reimbursement as well. So we haven't yet got that ball rolling, but so it's a little bit more work having a separate stop loss company, but definitely worth it with the savings that we generated.
So will that always mean that it's somewhat a month behind if we have to go through an extra step to request for reimbursement, as opposed to just flowing through Anthem?
Correct, yes. The reimbursements will always be a month behind.
Kind of like the pension committee minutes. Just a timing. That's all it is. That's all it is.
Is the ISL premium that we see in the report, is that the current premium, or?
That's the
Yeah.
budgeted premium.
Okay.
So the payments are actually based on the number of members we have each month. So the payment we make each month could be different. So for instance, for July and August, there's one number, and then during the summer, that's when the Board of Ed starts to onboard new teachers, new staff, so July and August are a little bit low. September jumps because of that. So you'll see a different fee every month depending on the actual members in our plan. So this is the amount that we budgeted based on the information we knew at the time. Whether it's higher or lower is be yet to be seen.
Okay, that was
for the end
really
of the
the
year.
nature
Right.
of the question, right? Are we
Right.
gonna save a little with the newer company?
Well, we're already saving a lot. Whether we're gonna save any more, I probably unlikely, but
The savings is reflected in the
the
budget.
savings are already reflected in the budget from
Oh,
what
I'm
we
sorry,
did the last.
that is the number for the
Yes,
new
that-
provider.
yes.
That was
Any
part
further
of the
I'm
savings
sorry.
is icing
I'm
on the
sorry.
cake,
Missed
really.
that.
I misunderstood your question, I'm sorry, John.
It was, I didn't ask it right, but now I get it.
We're good.
That is for the
We're all
new
good,
provider.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I was also curious that it looked like the claims were fairly low last 3 months. Is that the typical
That is
timing of?
typical because
yeah.
of the high deductible HSA plan. It resets July 1. So starting July 1, all the employees are spending their own deductible money, so our costs are usually less. You'll see the same thing last year if you look at the other columns. And then as those deductibles are exhausted, then the town starts to pick up.
All right.
That's why you see higher claims for the rest of the
That
year
makes
after
sense.
that.
Yep.
Any feedback on Slim Nation?
I just sat through the presentation this evening. So it hasn't been finalized. I know on the town side, for the new, I'm assuming you're asking about
Yep.
the new thing.
Right.
I know on the town side, we have more than 20 applicants, if you
Great.
call it, for the program, so we'll be having to make some decisions there. We don't have the numbers yet from Sharon at the Board of Ed, but clearly it's something that people are still looking for, and I think, like I said, I sat through the presentation today. There were people there who said, I work with so-and-so, and they really thought this was great, so I'm here tonight.
Good.
You know, so it's really word of mouth
mouth,
getting
yeah.
out, you know, to the employees and making a difference.
Yeah.
So hopefully they, you know, go through the plan and appreciate it. And
Yeah.
you know, obviously, the results that we see, you know, the comments that we get back are typically positive.
Yeah.
Great.
So maybe next month we'll have a more definitive answer to that.
Okay. Anything further from Mary Jane? Or Matt? Okay. Entertain a motion to approve the report of expenditures of the town government for September 2023 in the amount of $3,200,974.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, abstentions, recusals? I will recuse myself for any payments to Antonazi Associates. Thank you. Item number 6, committee reports. Building permits, anything?
Nothing crazy.
Nothing crazy. Item number 7, old business. I have one item under old business and actually one under new. Mr. Hoey, did you say you had something under old or new business?
I do, Mr. Chairman, under new business, so take care of old business first, please.
Okay, the item under old business that I have is, we brought it up last meeting, but the Board of Selectmen capital budget presentations, just a reminder for the board and the public for that matter. Those are going to be, wouldn't you know, I put Guilford Town Hall from 8:30 to 12 o'clock, and I didn't put the date. It's November, I know it's on my calendar. It's probably in all of our calendars, but I didn't put that down. The one thing, 16th, yes, thank you, Amy. November 16th, that's a Thursday, so 8:30 to 12. Would I assume correctly that there'll be a virtual link for those that can't be there in person? Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I figured. Okay, that was one item I had under old business. Anything else under old business? Item number 8, new business. I have one item, and then I'll pass the baton over to our first selectman. We all received a message, I believe, about the Board of Education Operations Committee Public Forum on the 2024-2025 education budget. That is going to be at the Guilford High School Media Center at 7:30 p.m. And I did the same thing. I didn't put the date on. It's October. I know I have a conflict that night, so I don't know if I'll be able to attend. But just to confirm,
Wednesday's this Wednesday.
It is this Wednesday, the 18th. Yes. So there will also be, if you go to the Board of Education website, there's also a YouTube link to the Board of Education YouTube channel if you can't attend in person. So I just want to remind the board of that item. That is all I had under new business. Mr. Hoey, new business?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have 2 items that I'd like to cover. The first of which is an item that we dealt with this morning at the Board of Selectmen meeting, and that was a request from the Guilford Fair Day or Guilford Citizens Parade Committee around financing of the effort to raise money to ensure a successful parade. Over the past couple of years, the committee has had some challenges related to fundraising. As you may or may not recall, a couple of years ago, we included in the selectmen's budget a $1,000 stipend to offset diminished volunteer funds for the Guilford Fair Day Parade. So at this morning's meeting, we agreed to take a look at a couple of components. The first of which is the involvement of the schools. There is a honorarium or a fee that's paid to the schools for participation from some of the school activities, predominantly Guilford High School, and the band, as well as the Adams Band. And there's a placeholder for the Baldwin Band, and also an allocation of funds for the floats. There is continuing concern on behalf of the folks who all volunteer, who do this activity every year to pull together the fair and get the volunteers to make sure that everybody's marching from the spot they're supposed to. So we have agreed to work with the Board of Education, reach out to the Board of Education about continuing payments to the Board of Education entities, as well as there will be a letter going out from my office to the known suspects, right? The folks who have been donating for years, the Rotary, the Guilford Agricultural Society, Guilford Savings Bank, which is no longer directly contributing, but is contributing through the Guilford Foundation. So the ask from the committee was, would the town consider funding the entire amount to put the Guilford Fair Day or Citizens Parade on? And the consensus this morning was that we want to continue to give those who have a generous bent in our community to continue to do so, with the expectation that, like we have already done at the Board of Selectmen, we'll continue to make up a shortfall for where those donations come in. So you may well be seeing in the next budget cycle an increase in the ask for support of the Guilford Fair Day Parade. The more, again, the point I made this morning was I'd be happy to put a letter out over my signature to those entities who have traditionally contributed, asking for their continued participation, so that there is not an expectation that that the entire thing is going to be funded through taxpayer dollars. That's number one. I'll entertain any questions on that if anyone has it.
Hearing none at this time.
Thank you. I'm open to your input at any point, as always. And again, expect to see more on this during our budget deliberations. The next piece I want to talk about is, which is why there are 2 interested members from the public that are attending this meeting, other than myself, remotely. They are members. They are, I think, the president and vice president of the Guilford Firefighters Union, And this is related to the challenges that we are seeing relative to retention, predominantly retention, on our firefighter paramedics, our firefighter EMTs. And of late, several other entities have changed the way they go about recruiting and trying to attract new members. So Guilford has become the target of some of those municipalities who are also facing challenges recruiting and retaining paramedic, firefighter paramedics, firefighter EMTs. And what you should understand is this is no longer, okay, I can take a couple of courses and I can be a paramedic. I can take a couple less courses and be an EMT, or vice versa. The amount of investment that goes into preparing a firefighter EMT or a firefighter paramedic is often borne by the individual to get that certification prior to the time they are hired. So not unlike what's happening in public safety throughout the country, in the state of Connecticut and also here, public safety, including both fire and police services. The availability of qualified individuals is becoming more and more a challenge. And it's even made more so when we might be at a competitive disadvantage in terms of retaining qualified individuals who we have spent, in some cases, thousands of dollars to train and bring up to speed. So the ask is both from management, Chief Hershaft, the Deputy Chief or Assistant Chief Shove, as well as union representation, that we look at some efforts to enhance our retention strategy. And that comes at least in one fashion, perhaps two, but the most immediate is creating some relative to the police department's and other post-employment benefits, healthcare benefits, which currently are not afforded to retirees from our fire department. The second piece of this, which is coming not only from the fire folks, but also from the police department management, is relooking at defined benefit plans because we are potentially at a competitive disadvantage relative to retention, because folks, we're training people, particularly on the police department. We send a 22-year-old up to the police academy for 9 months. We pay him the entire time. He has 3 months worth of following somebody else before he's actually on the street. So we're paying an awful lot of money to get these people up to speed. So the long story short, I have committed to the management at the fire department as well as the union that we will look at the opportunities to potentially provide enhancements to our current benefit program, specifically as it relates to health benefits, secondarily as it relates to defined benefit plans. And so I've talked to the Board of Selectmen about this morning. What I am going to be proposing is that we put an ad hoc committee together, representation from the Board of Finance, representation from the Board of Selectmen, representation from the Fire Commission, representation from the union, as well as our HR department, to start to sift through the opportunities and challenges related to providing post-employment benefits, and also looking at some form of a defined benefit plan, which I will say this right away, and I know Mr. Deco and Mr. Lapagni are here. I've already said this. The new defined benefit plans will not look like the defined benefit plans of old. There will be significant conversations around shared risk as it relates to defined benefit retirement plans. But nonetheless, I'm committed to entering into honest discussions about how we ensure that we're going to have the personnel to protect our community. So I will be, Mr. Chairman, you don't have to necessarily do this tonight, but I'll be looking for a representative from your board to participate in those discussions.
I think we have a volunteer.
I would like to
That would
volunteer.
be Miss Scanlon.
You don't have to
As-
recuse yourself.
I just want to say, as a former EMT, I would like to do it. Yeah.
You would be a wonderful addition to that commission.
But I have a question about so obviously, and this, I'm just asking this, but for the cities and towns that are in like the state's pension.
MERS plan?
Yes, is that an option or are we not considering that? Oh, okay.
Despite my protestations to the obvious last month when Jonathan asked the question, yes, I think everything is on the table.
Okay.
And I'd be very much interested to learn what the state is doing relative to their secondary, tertiary, quadruple tiers relative to shared risk. My own personal belief is we will not enter into any defined benefit plan unless it includes a shared risk component.
Okay.
The expectation that the community pays all the downside risk is something that I don't think is palatable, not only to me, but to most of the community.
Got it.
Everyone needs to share in the downside.
Okay.
And it is a trend we've been moving away from, but if it's a changed model, then.
Right, but,
it-
Mike, this is where I'm challenged, right? Typically, and rightfully so, perhaps, our emergency service personnel are among the most handsomely rewarded relative to salary. And they have been prior to the elimination of defined benefit plans, the significant beneficiaries of that. I think you've heard me talk about the fact that we have a significant amount of people who are on defined benefit plans who are no longer getting cost of living, they're not getting cost of living increases, et cetera. So this is, in large part, there is an equity issue that extends beyond just our emergency services personnel, right? There are other employees in this community who work just as hard. They may not put their lives at risk to the same degree that our emergency services personnel, but there are people who work very hard who need to be considered when we look at all of these issues. And I'll get off my soapbox, I'll get off my liberal soapbox.
No, I just wanted to very quickly say, I appreciate the proactiveness, looking at this, at every, turning over every rock and looking at all the different options. I appreciate also Chairman Deco and Stephen LaPaglia joining us. I think it'll be a very fruitful ad hoc committee going through this. And I've heard it, we've all heard it numerous times about being able to recruit and retain. And it's for a lot, it's not just for emergency services, it's for many, many different professions. But of all the crucial ones, we need to make sure that we have people that can protect us. So very much appreciate this proactive effort to try to move this forward as quickly as possible.
Mr. Chairman, it's proactive, but it's also reactive. We are at risk right now of losing up to 6, Joe, I think it's up to 6 potential employees to New Haven because New Haven has changed their policy relative to taking transfers into their system. At one point, they would only take new hires into the program, but they have allegedly changed their policy, which means all of our employees are fair game to go to work in communities like New Haven and possibly elsewhere.
My guess is that they've made those changes because they're facing similar problems with keeping people on staff and recruited and filling positions that they need to fill. So they've expanded the category, the applicant pool, by making it more attractive for other places outside of the city.
And if Guilford's having challenges, I can only imagine what New Haven, Hartford, Bridgeport, they're having. So they're gonna make it much more, you know, I could see them making it lucrative, which is gonna be hurt, you know, it's gonna hurt us, so.
No, you're absolutely right, Jeff. The opportunity, and by the way, let's look at a 24-year-old paramedic EMT who has the opportunity of either going to work in New Haven and getting a defined benefit plan for pension and also an OPEB plan, all right? Those opportunities didn't exist a couple of years ago, and now they potentially exist, so how do we compete? Notwithstanding, there is a difference between, and Joe and Steve, please don't take this the wrong way, there's a difference between being a firefighter EMT or firefighter paramedic in Guilford than there is in New Haven. There's a difference in what you're going to encounter on any given day, but that may not be enough to overcome the attraction of a defined benefit plan and OPEB benefits at 55 or whatever age. So.
So you're going to be discussing this with the Board of Selectmen in terms of an ad hoc committee?
Yes.
When do you see that?
Nobody volunteered this morning at our Board of Selectmen meeting, but I'm sure I can find one. Megan Scanlon's in.
I'm so excited.
Well, I mean, it's kind of one of those things where I was expecting to have to go around the table and be like, okay, who? And then all of a sudden the first hand goes up. I was like,
Right.
oh, wow, we have a volunteer. So
Yeah.
Jonathan,
Well, you got two.
I did hear your
Two volunteers.
your voice. I think on this one
Right,
it's.
well, I believe, by the way, I'm not restricting it to one from your board. I'd be happy to have more than one if you're looking to do so.
If listen, if more are welcome and we have 2 volunteers who are willing to do it, as long as it's okay with the Board of Selectmen and the ad hoc committee, have no problem
Right.
with that. I think that'd be great.
Well,
It's
the
a big
broader
issue.
base of the understanding of the issue and the potential solutions, because we have more voices at the table, I'm more than welcome to. I'm not going to restrict it to just one. Sometimes we have challenges getting volunteers, but the fact that there are 2 is absolutely wonderful.
And I'm, Matt, I'm curious, for New Haven and like the cities, are they all in the MERS program?
I don't think, Joe, you want to chime in here? Joe?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Selectman and Board of Finance. Thank you for having us. That's a great question. And I just want to introduce myself before I go. My name is Joe Deco. I'm a fireman in town. I've been on the job for 13 and a half years, and I currently serve as the vice president of the union. Steve LePatte is the president, just for clarification. But yes, I also see this on one of the other hats that I wear. I'm the chairman of the East Haven Legislative Town Council. So I sit on the side of the table last night. So tonight I'm here. Great questions. CMERS. Most of the other surrounding departments are in CMERS, which is a 25 and out retirement plan, as you know.
Yeah.
So most of the surrounding departments, comparable departments, are as far as retirement pension goes.
Okay, just asking.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Jim.
Of course.
One of the things that, again, in the effort for full disclosure, when we first put a fire department in place, there was, we didn't even contemplate the OPEB benefits, nor a pension. We did have a pension in place at the time, but we did not contemplate OPEB benefits at that point. So this is a significant departure from the way we originally thought we would need to run a fire department, particularly because I think we were kind of unique in those days when we did the firefighter EMT and firefighter paramedic. As many of you, maybe you don't recall, we used to have a separate ambulance company and we had a volunteer fire company. This was the amalgamation of both those entities into a single source. And again, Joe, I'm way over my skis here, but I thought we were pretty progressive at the time when we did requirement of firefighter EMT or firefighter paramedic, because in a lot of other departments, you could just be a firefighter. And they had separate EMT departments. And what we've all come to realize, like I mentioned this earlier, is the predominant number of calls in our emergency services organization are for medical. So the model is significantly different than what it was when we first entered into the arrangement with our union.
Anybody else have any questions, further questions? Very much appreciate the heads up and the input. And I'm sure we'll be hearing more about this shortly, very shortly, so. Okay.
Well, Megan, Jonathan will make sure you get word of when we're going to try to do a formational meeting. And we'll be as accommodating as we can to schedules. Any preference as to whether or not it's daytime or evening time, please don't hesitate to let me know via email.
Okay.
Great. Thank you, Stephen and Joe, for joining us this evening. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having us. We really appreciate it. We look forward to working with the town to get this problem solved.
Yeah, same here. Okay. If nothing further, item number 9 is public forum.
Any more new business
Nope.
opportunities?
No more new business on my end.
got one
Do you
item.
have an item? Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think I brought this up maybe the last 2 meetings, but is the Guilford Foundation going to start providing some reporting on how they're spending the ARPA funds?
Jonathan, that's a good question. I'm not sure they have finalized their awards yet. They will, as soon as they have finalized their awards, they will be reporting back through the town as to who the final recipients are. That is one of the requirements that they have as a result of being a subrecipient of the ARPA funds. I've heard some anecdotal information about where they're going, but I do not think they have a final list yet. There may have been some people who, based on when the applications were filed or looked at, that may have been either told or that they're getting some or not getting some. But that process, Jonathan, worry not. That'll be a fully transparent process that everyone in the community will be made aware of.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other items under new business? Public forum. Okay, if nothing further, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks for your indulgence, Stevie.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. As they say in the South, appreciate you.